So yeah, I suppose we can move on to our other news, the kind of little news of the week. And there was a bit of news this week, and there is. Sure, obviously we're
cramming a couple of things into this segment just to sort of for ease of show, because obviously we will talk about, which I guess we'll start with the 7's. And the under-20s is kicking off next week, but the 7's is obviously in this massively cool place. We couldn't not mention it. It is a different code, so we don't this is a Union 15's podcast, but it's the last week. It's in Paris. We have been watching it. It's a super fun sport. If you're not into it, you should be.
Yeah, it's great fun.
Fiji and the USA,
2
of all
points
teams,
separate them.
2 points separate them. I actually don't know who to root for. I really like both teams.
Both. Yeah.
A lot. And I think there's merit to both. Like, you want Fiji to win. They're great. But then also the USA and the potential there.
Yeah.
It's like both sides are both David and Goliath, if you know what I mean. In the rugby context, in the rugby 7's context, Fiji are Goliath, but also as a nation they're David, and the USA is the opposite.
Yes, true. Actually, but the USA have put such resource and time into it, and I just think the thought behind how they play the game is excellent in terms of how they use their sprinters, which is the asset they have. And
but it's not just sprinters. Like, Perry Baker is such an athlete. Like, Carl Noss is a sprinter. Perry Baker is super quick, but he's such an athlete.
No, it's true. But then I'm looking at the makeup of their team. Then there's a lot of physicality in the tight there to facilitate those finishers.
Totally.
But then Fiji is a slightly different approach, where they're all pretty robust and physical, but they're also crazy offloads. You're having like a grand total of like 15 offloads in a game and only 3 rooks when they did manage to get snagged.
It legitimately is winner takes all this week in Paris. If either side,
I think in theory, if both of them bottle it and go completely south, then New Zealand could take it, but they're a bit far back.
No, that couldn't happen, could it?
Well, only I think they're like way outside, like even 20 points.
No, they couldn't even. No. They could get to
22 points.
Fiji would need to get no points.
No points. Yeah, that's never going to happen.
What are you talking about?
Never going to happen. Yeah. But so Fiji and the US, who have been the 2 best teams overall, and then New Zealand and South Africa in their own little pocket, a few points behind.
The South African 7's team was short of a lot of their players at the start of this year.
In World Cup years, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Same way that a lot of 15's teams, like the Fiji, a lot of 15's players went back to 7's for the Olympics, and that's going to happen now that that's part of the calendar. That's going to flip between those codes.
Totally.
But this year, no doubt that those 2 teams are deserving of it, and it's just whoever's going to be better on that weekend is going to take it. So it comes down to a one tournament kind of was. No slip ups in the group.
And if you get a chance, World Rugby just get infinite credit for how they broadcast this on YouTube and Facebook and everywhere. It's just
very
so
easy to
accessible.
find it. And normally I open my computer screen and there's a little thing saying like, there's the 7's. If I'm going towards Facebook, it's like, 7's is happening.
And
it's great.
You just get to watch it. So they do a great job broadcasting it, and it's so worth a watch.
Yeah, for sure. Great fun game.
The other thing that's happening, we're only going to touch on it really, is just as a prelude, is next week, by the time we shoot our next podcast, the Under-20 World Cup will have kicked off. So the structure of it obviously is just 3 pools of 4, 12 teams in it. You've got your 6 nations, your 4 nations, Fiji and Georgia.
Exactly.
There's not a lot of weakness. I would say that Scotland might be the weakest team at this level.
Looking at it, for sure. Because you're looking at like Italy,
Georgia are deceptively good at under 20 level, and I actually don't know what Fiji bring at under 20 level. It could be terrible.
I don't know what Australia are bringing either.
No, neither do I. There's a lot that you don't know, but there's also watching the kids play rugby has.
It's great merit to it. It's a great tournament. This, since it goes back, it's a very historical one. There's such esteem and such. It's just great experience for guys at this age, and then it's always interesting. You do spot a few bolters who end up lighting up the 15s game. And
Andre Pollard was player of this tournament. A good, I think 2014, and that autumn he was put into the rugby championship.
And you think more recently that
scored 2 tries against the All Blacks.
James Ryan was playing in this tournament before, and then he was captain for this team before he was capped for Leinster.
He was capped for Ireland senior teams before he was capped for Leinster. Exactly.
So there's a lot of bolters that you see in these tournaments, and it's just a great little part of the rugby calendar.
Both Georgia and Italy should be hoping that there's an awesome 10 who's going to come into his own in this tournament.
Yes, that's what we're looking for.
That's like the biggest high stakes for those 2 teams, and actually Fiji, you could say as well.
Fiji would not,
just if you could get like a baller of a 10, just straight in there into the World Cup squad. But it's good for looking at just the future of these nations and patterns they're in. Important not to read too much in it. You're looking at talent, like the actual structure and coaching of the teams is less relevant going forward. It's relevant for who wins the tournament.
So certainly from an Irish perspective with it, it's kind of curious because a lot of these, like the under-20s is only an entity for these kinds of tournaments, so it's like they're kind of hodgepodge together from where they're playing more often
rarely
from their schools and clubs, rarely well coached.
Rarely well
so you're looking at looking at great potential, but you're looking at also a kind of a mixed bag of a team and a unit.
From big picture speak, you're really just scouting for talent, but also just enjoying the games. There's a lot of really fun games. It is, as you say, a tournament of esteem, and it'll be curious to see who wins it. You don't go very far betting against the Baby Blacks and England at this level.
England tend to be bigger and stronger than most at this level, and that can tell in these
occasionally
games.
You get a good French team at this level as well.
Sometimes, so it's all worth watching.
The three pools are Australia, England, Ireland and Italy. That's pool 1. Pool A, or that's pool B in fact. I started with pool B for no reason. There's Georgia, New Zealand, South Africa and Scotland is another pool.
That's pool C.
Pool C,
back for pool A.
New Zealand and South Africa in both pools. World Cup as well. Argentina, Fiji, France and Wales, which feels like the weakest group, but there could be some technical try-scoring madness going on in there.
So we'll be watching a bit of that and would encourage you to do same, because it's definitely well worth having a look at those games while they're going on, and well worth following your team. It'll be Come On Ireland again. We'll have green jerseys on.
And then England 15, coached by Jim Malander, are playing the Barbarians, who have picked a great selection of awesome players. Your Facundo Isas and your Francois Lowe's and your Bill Matas and the like. And then awesome backs as well. So there's potential for the Babas to cut loose. There's potential. It's just scouting some talent for England. It's weird that Eddie Jones isn't coaching them. It's a bit of a showcase. They do this game every year. But this in a World Cup year, it feels kind of like an intrusion more than anything else.
Well, it's not an intrusion though. It'll be
well on England's plans. That's why Eddie Jones isn't even coaching them.
For sure. So it is a bit strange that it's happening at the same weekend as the Premiership.
They do that every year. It's so
well, it just means that the England team aren't available.
Cipriani isn't even playing for them.
Yeah, but that's weird. And that was the one little news that I heard. And I was like, why isn't Cipriani playing for them? I don't know what's going on.
This game of all games,
against the Babas, be great fun. Get him out there.
Exactly what you want.
But no, apparently not. But I'll still turn an eye towards it. It's the Babas. It's always fun to watch.
Yeah, if they're playing it on Sunday, which is considerate of them because there's nothing else going on.
This is it. They'll just be on in the background and doing some other stuff. So that's the Babas back in action, and Pat Lam back at the helm for some more barnstorming and
Pat Lam to do the Gatland Lions job, in the sense that we've just found a coach we like. Pat Lam will just always coach the Babas.
He's now Babas coach.
For life.
Baba Bristol.
The other bit of news, obviously, that we mentioned was Sia Khaleesi and Warren Whiteley are out for the rest of the Super Rugby season. And just for the knee injury for Sia, I just really hope it's not a cruciate. But we spoke about that earlier on.
The other kind of vague injury, not quite news because it's not set in stone yet, but Sean O'Brien is going in for surgery, and looks like it's dead.
We know that his World Cup is done.
We know that much, but it's whether he'll be able to do anything.
Speaking to a couple
Irish,
of medical professionals who I know, and we know, they knew the specific hip procedure that he was getting, and were extremely skeptical about his prospects of playing rugby again. We've been here before with Sean O'Brien, and he has. He's a bit like Beric Dindari, and he comes back a little less every time, but. He could surprise everyone. I'm glad he got his contract with London Irish signed. I hope he'll go over there and be a good ambassador. But it has to be said, what a legend of the game. If this is it for Sean O'Brien, for Irish rugby, a special place in our hearts.
Tip our hats to him. He's
courageous as a player.
Oh my god, the way he flung his body into every contact, and anytime there was like a big name player who was a big kind of monster, he would be going straight for him, and from minute one trying to run over these big monsters of the game and try and blitz. And I think his opus was that Lions tour just gone. I think he's phenomenal.
I was going to say, I was super happy for him on that, because he'd always been brilliant for Ireland. Like, he burst on the scene. His like possibly his best ever season was 2011 for Leinster, when he really broke the season, and he was just Leinster's MVP.
He was unstoppable.
We thought Rocky Elson was good, and then Sean O'Brien showed us what good is, and then but I was super happy for him that after, like, he'd obviously shown his colours in World Cups gone by, but it had always been stop-start with injury. He was picking up honours along the way, no doubt, and everyone knew he was a legend. But he really got to make a name for himself in the Southern Hemisphere
with
in
that
tour. And he did, like, he made an impact, and Kiwis know who he is now forever.
Yes,
because of that tour.
Exactly.
I was delighted.
Deserving
for him.
of the man, because he's been sensational. As Leinstermen, we can't speak with anything other than his reverential. But as rugby fans too, you have to tip your hat to what an immense player that guy was and is, and always shall be in memory. And I'm torn on it. Like, it would be nice if he could get back to play, but then Premiership's no place for you if you're not up to the physicality of it.
The suspicion that I have is that London Irish, a lot of people have made this point, but they kind of knew what they were getting into when they got him. He's going to be more of a brand ambassador.
If he can ask him to make the 20 jersey his own, like there's maybe a possibility of him becoming a good 15 to 20 minutes.
The first thing that has to happen is he has to get fit again.
That's exactly.
He has this injury. He has to get a surgery. It's
But if you're rolling him out week in, week out at 6 or 7,
obviously
he's gonna break again.
So that's Shawnee, and we love and respect you and hope that this isn't the end, but it may be, and it is for a Test jersey and a Leinster jersey, and super glad he got to lift the trophy. It was a nice
that was a lovely touch.
Leinster lift trophies better than anyone.
Indeed,
they do.
Well, they have good practice at it.
I know, but they always lift it in twos or give it to the right person, and it's just a real great camaraderie style to how they lift trophies.
It's always a great picture, and that was no different.
Just to on a similar note,
to stick with Leinster for
I was going to say on a similar note, Dimitri Sazetsky is retiring. And I just read a little piece. Obviously, he gave an interview about it, and he was saying just like he was world weary from the game, and he was kind of just jaded and sick of it, and he really did love playing rugby, and he loved the camaraderie of being with players, but more and more his experience of the game is just pain, and he's just in constant pain, and he's obviously had 7 surgeries. He spends more time on the medical table or in rehab than he does with his team, and so he's hanging up his boots, and he gave sort of a jaded and sad interview, and it was just a reminder of what can be the ill consequences of this game.
This is a game that particularly
another warrior as well.
Those kind of attritional players who just never shirk from the contact. As admirable as it is, it's only a matter of time before this game will choose you up.
There's a new breed. Now that the super athletes are in, there's for guys who aren't like Will Skelton, who can do what he wants seemingly. You've got to be smart with your body, and there's definitely a little more like guys are picking weak shoulders, getting your butt. Like a great example of this was Jamie Heaslip, who in and of himself is a super athlete. Now he did end up retiring through an injury, but he went through most of his career uninjured, and he is not going to be long term damaged by the game in the way that some guys are. Because he was super smart with what he did with his body everywhere on the pitch. He was making sure he wasn't getting injured, but also off the pitch. He rehabbed really well. He was a military guy, so he knew all the sort of like he had like an altitude thing that he slept in. Or
he was very much nerdy. I think you used to see him in the dressing room cam, and he'd be walking around with an ice pack on his head.
He was just all kinds of clever things. And there's definitely, like, as well as concussion protocols and everything else, a direction that the game is going to have to go in is players being educated and smart about how and what they're doing with their bodies, both on and off the pitch. And I think Starzetsky is an example of what can go wrong if you're just, Bernard Jackman style gung-hoing for the contact.
Yeah, for sure. It's like there's always going to be a place for those guys, because those guys are always going to burst on the scene. You're going to see these barnstorming ball carriers who just have no regard for their own body. But that's the point, is that
everyone has to make an effort to educate these guys.
Well, true, but
at a younger age
feels
than
like
pro.
This is it. But it feels like over a pro career with injury is the way that those learnings come. But then there are those few exceptions, like your Jamie Heaslip, or like when you're looking at clips from old Lions tours when Johnny Wilkinson was there icing his leg that had a bit of tightness, and he's there in a big dramatic looking thing on the bed, and it's like, are you going to be all right, says the journo, and he's like, this is all just like medical protocol, I have to do this, and then I'll rest, and then I'll move it, and all this, I'll be fine for the game. And surely he was.
But that's the point, is that you don't need guys learning that by getting bad injuries.
No.
The point, there should be sort of around the world education things drilled in about just how to use your body a little smarter, and you can still be, as evidenced. He's a prime example because he was actually more effective for that efficiency, not less effective.
It's true, because if you're thinking about how to use your body that much, then you're going to be spoiling things well.
Yeah, you're putting it in the right places. You're attacking gaps and soft shoulders and I think, and also just not breaking as the game goes on, so you're still as present in minute 78 as you were in minute 1.
Exactly.
So there's all kinds of good there. But obviously Sazetsky is retiring, and he's been a long mainstay in the game for years and years and years with his beautiful locks of hair, which I'm sure you appreciate.
I'm always appreciative of a nice hairy player. Need a bit more of that, little bouncing guys around the pitch.
And I did wish him hopefully all the best to recover and feel better about life, because he does have a grand career.
A lot of great tape, and he's been a part of a great many great French teams, and he's a legend. Same as Sean O'Brien. You can't shirk that or can't slight that. But just even thinking now that on that point of using your body and clarity with body, you're talking about World Rugby and their guidelines that they've published, or they've published a little video explanation of what their rationale is, or what the questions that they're asking in terms of what the refs are thinking around the tackle area, high tackle. So it's based on deciding whether it's a genuine high tackle or a shoulder charge.
So difficult to explain. Like, you even summarize. Like, it's a 12-minute video, and it's efficient enough in the sense that each one of the 12 minutes matters. It's brain melty enough. I have my quibbles with it. Like, there's this high tackle versus shoulder charge thing,
which based on where the angle of the arm, whether it's ahead of you or behind you, dictates whether it's a tackle thing, which is fine. That's
mitigating factors appears to be a massive thing, which just further baffles the Cipriani call.
I think there was
a little period
wrong,
but there was a little period there where it seemed like any shoulder to the head was red, and it feels like as confused as Ruiz can get, if he was aware of the protocols as per that video, I can't imagine him giving a red card to Cipriani for that. If mitigating factors exist at all, the fact that he didn't really touch the guy.
They spoke of mitigating and aggravating factors conversely. So you're thinking things like mitigating factors are like if the initial contact is low and then it goes high. If
the player ducks,
it's a dominant hit tackle that they then complete, or if it's a passive tackle that they come out of.
The aggravating factors just are if it's open space and the guy has loads of time to adjust and then makes a high tackle.
Because what they're trying to encourage broadly, seemingly from this, is to get players and coaches bringing the tackle height lower, which is what they've been talking about. So if you're in a clean line of sight and you still go high to make that chest hit and then make contact with the head dangerously, that's probably going to be red.
Well, it's not like they come up, they have their factors for red and yellow as they explain are like if it's shoulder to the head, or if it's connection with the head and it's dangerous and it has some force, then it's a red, and then that can be changed to a yellow if there are mitigating factors and no aggravating factors. But if that's an open space, that's just a red card. So you have to be careful.
So it was interesting. It was a bit of clarity in terms of what they're getting at, which I appreciate.
But there were still little moments in that video that pissed me off, which was just like they had written under it like, this will give clarity and consistency to decisions, and then they were saying like a ref could interpret this as enough mitigation to move it from a red to a yellow. And it's like, or it could not. It's like the ref might do this, or the ref. There were all of these little.
So it leads you to believe that maybe consistency won't be there. And like we were talking about Nigel Owens earlier in the podcast about his leniency will probably stand then if a lot of this is still up to interpretation, then there's probably going to be differing things between each ref. So
I don't remember one of the mitigating factors as were listed being he thought he had the ball.
He thought he had the ball, so play on.
No, that was crazy. The Fraser Brown one is still a yellow, and the Rob Carney one is still a red. Neither of them had to do with the high tackle area.
No, but this video was an interesting watch, I suppose, and it's good to just have a bit of context, because obviously when you're listening to a ref, like, we know the laws, and knowing the laws is one thing, but to listen to a ref talking about mitigating factors doesn't really flow with the laws at all.
Yeah, the law is the law, but it's the interpretation of the law as dictated by World Rugby. That's everything. And that's ebbing and flowing and changing.
And it seems to be in constant flux. So it's nice to get little tidbits like this to at least be able to tether some of the thoughts that we're seeing, or some of the things we're seeing on the pitch.
Yeah.
Other news then was Rob Kearney signing on for Leinster.
Change pace. I think the last couple of weeks we've mentioned that we think he might be going after a Sean O'Brien post, and there was all sorts of rumours that he was going to France.
No, he ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, well, there was.
He likes Dublin. He likes the fact that he doesn't have to be I heard him interviewed and he seems to think that, like, and he's probably right, going to either France or England will mean playing week in, week out at 15 or more than likely, rather than what he's doing now, which is proper man management.
To the IRFU that they manage his body a little bit, and towards the end of the career he has to be conscious, as much as making bank is nice, he has to be conscious of destroying his body.
Exactly.
He's got to this point.
There's a balance with all of that.
I think he was holding out for a 2-year contract like Cian Healy got, and he wasn't getting it. He was getting a 1-year contract. Yeah, that just is what it is.
Well, sure, last week we found out Nucifora is staying, so the IRFU are still going to be playing hardball with a lot of these, like Gordon Darcy was apparently the same.
I like
when
Nucifora a lot, but Jesus Christ, pay the 7's players.
No, he won't do that.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing over his head is the women's game.
Yeah,
he has to
He's
answer
ruthless.
for that. He's ruthless is right,
but
and he's effective, to be fair. But there are
casualties along the way.
There are casualties along the way. But Rob is not one of them. He's renewed anyway, and so he'll be here next year. But in other Leinster news, which I see isn't actually down there, we've let go 2 locks to Zebra. Ian Nagel and Mick Carney are both leaving Leinster and joining Zebra.
We had known that Ian Nagel was going there, and I had known that Mick Carney was going. I just didn't know he was going there.
Yeah,
so
it's good news for Zebra, is what it is.
It's good news. Yeah, it's probably I feel like Mick Carney should have stayed over Ross Maloney, but they seem to see something in Ross Maloney. So.
Yeah, so fair enough. But it means that the Leinster depth and kind of talent machine will have to be tested again, because we only saw little bits of game time from Jack Dunn and such.
Jack Dunn.
Yeah,
but there's promise there.
There is.
I think they'll be fine.
Probably,
but maybe a season or two of or a season of a little bit of hurt in those lower
particular areas.
But that's good news for Zebra. A bit of heft.
Sure. They need that, because
Michael Bradley.
They've actually been like, a lot of their shape this year has been good, but they've just been losing games. So it'd be nice. They
need big enforcers to protect Carl O'Connor from all contact.
But also 2 Leinster men in the dressing room is probably not a bad thing either.
Mick Carney in particular, because he's been there for those big, like games. Ian Nagel's more of a journeyman, but Mick Carney has been there for a decent period now, and he's played some European games with the big boys.
So it's about setting standards over there and making sure they're up to it in training, and it could be a great thing for Zebra.
In similar news, Sam Davis, who's been an Osprey stalwart now for many's a year, is going to Dragons to make room for Gareth Anscombe, is going up to Ospreys.
Right.
And that just makes me a little sad. He's been such an Osprey.
Yeah.
And he's been good in his own little way, and I just think it's a bit sad. I don't know why, but I just think it's a bit sad.
Maybe he'll be Dragons Renaissance.
I hope so.
It would be nice to run these years.
There's nothing to like about the Ospreys. I don't like I just
Alan Wynne-Jones, Justin Tipperick.
No, I'll give you that. They're two players, but I mean just the way that they conduct themselves and everything about the club, and if you can just add just a dismissive disdain for loyalty and disregard for loyalty and everything else to the list of problems with that franchise, and it's just
that's wearying. And they're the only Welsh representatives now, so we'll have to look at them, and they won't do anything.
Yeah,
Anscombe no.
So that's just sad news that Sam Davis is gone.
Yes,
there you go. Ireland named their World Cup squad. The final bit of news, the World Cup training squad. We had Scotland's a few weeks back.
Fiji as well.
Fiji have done theirs as well, that's right. Their big news was obviously their defence coach, but they named a hell of a squad.
Yes, obviously, as they always would.
Ireland's squad is good.
Really tasty as well.
As
interesting. Big omissions probably just, well,
I think the biggest news, there's 2 bits of big news. One is Rory Scannell over McCluskey, which from our perspective of what we're talking about Irish rugby is massive, because it could give rise to what we desperately need, which is 2 distributors on the field. Yeah. And as Gary with ball in hand you haven't really seen the distribution of Gary at all this year.
No.
It hasn't been used. Catch pass hasn't been as good as it was when you think back to that Scotland game last year.
Yeah, for sure.
He's just not doing that as much. And Ireland, for sure, with the way that they're attacking and just being stymied by defence after defence after defence, including Italy, stymieing them for large parts.
Yeah. They need more ball players in there.
two distributors in the back line, and what we've been shouting for is the potential of because we want Chris Farrell maybe in that 13 jersey with Ringrose to come off the bench. We like the idea maybe of Joey Carberry at 15.
We still do,
but we're highly skeptical of that being an option. So getting Rory Scannell in there just increases the likelihood of maybe
it
him
reassures me
training.
at least, because if you're talking about the omission is McCluskey then from up north, but McCluskey's never shown enough in the green jersey to do it, and I don't think he's shown enough in it for Ulster this year.
Something that I've been saying all year is that every test cap that was given to McCluskey should have been given to Rory Scannell, and if that was the case, he would have a much better chance of being ultimately selected for Joe, because he just doesn't have enough international test mileage in the clock for Joe to trust him, more than likely. But what my hope is that he's just going to have a ballerific training camp and Joe's going to be convinced. But it's a hope.
It's a hope. Well, he hasn't actually been at his ballerific self in the Munster system either as well. He's been good, but he's been in a more defensively minded...
He was very good when Tyler Blindall was at 10.
Yes.
He was keeping them afloat, because Tyler Blindall was not doing much.
Yes, it's true.
I wouldn't hold the two semi-final defeats against him.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying he's probably more of a footballer than he's shown, and more of a passer than he's allowed to show in that Munster outfit.
He's a distributing player.
This is it, which is asking the right questions. If it was McCluskey and Aki and Farrell and Henshaw, you're going like that's a lot of blunt heft.
They've thrown a new face and a new picture in there, which is good. The other bit of interesting news that I don't really like is
Sean Klein over
Quinn Roux. The end of
they're kind of a like for like player type, but I actually just rate Quinn Roux slightly more. But
I think he's taking a look at John Klein and seeing if he can do with him what he does with all the other Munster players, or Peter O'Mahony in particular. Sprinkle a bit of Joe Schmidt magic dust, and he doesn't give away those mad penalties that he does for Munster. But Jean Klein is a penalty machine and a bit of a crazy player, and flaky and
not all that
inconsistent,
overwhelmingly physical either for
it's
being the enforcer role that he has. So and he's certainly not another footballer that we're putting in there, to be honest. He's there to be an enforcer.
And then the other one that a lot of people have been bitching about is Mike Haley, which I kind of get. I don't think he's going to be involved ultimately in the squad.
I don't think he's at the international level. I think he's a lovely footballer. I actually think he's a nice fullback.
It almost feels like future experience. I know Joe's not going to be around, but just getting him involved and seeing the squad, because maybe he'll come up at some point. But it just occurred to me that he could be, because Joe is looking for a backup to Rob. I hope that he hasn't come up with Mike Haley as an answer.
That would be wrong,
because it's
Joey Carberry. But no, he's 10 now apparently. Some of his best games have been from 15. He's a 10.
We've said it plenty. But that I think rounds up our other news. A load of news this week.
A lot of stuff happening off the field. Thank you very much for watching that video. If it's your first time here, please leave a like and subscribe down below, and leave a comment as well if you enjoyed it, because we enjoyed the conversation.